let's just kick right off here talking about Amazon because there are a few different points to this discussion I think we want to get to. We're talking primarily about Amazon's effort to gain more share in the payment space, and that is through Amazon Pay. Now, I think we can couple this discussion also with the fact that according to Adobe Analytics, Black Friday pulled in a record $6.22 billion in online sales, which was up almost 24% from a year ago. And it was the first day in history to see more than $2 billion in sales stemming from smartphones. And I think that's where I really want to pick this conversation up here, because not only are we living in an e-commerce world, we're certainly living in a mobile world as well. And for a lot of us, Amazon Pay probably isn't top of mind, yet we're reading now that they're really making efforts to gain share. It seems like initially with perhaps companies that are not necessarily direct competitors, like gas stations or restaurants, what have you. But it does seem like they are trying to take a little bit more of that role in the transaction, much like we've seen Apple do to date with Apple Pay. But it's also not just Apple, right? There's all these payments companies out there trying to get a little piece of that transaction. So talk a little bit about your experience with Amazon Pay. Give us a little bit of your perspective here as to what the end game here is with Amazon.
Sure. Well, I was on a certain retailer's website. I can't tell you what I bought or who I bought it from because it was an anniversary gift from my wife who listens to the show.
So you really can't. I was going to say you can't or you won't, but it's both, I guess.
Yeah, so I really can. But it was I'd say like a small business, like something you would see like featured on Shark Tank. And it kind of struck me as somewhere that gets most of their sales from Amazon to begin with. So this was directly on their website. And I went to check out. They were having a great Black Friday sale. So I went to their website, selected my products, and went to the checkout. And there were two buttons. There was a PayPal button and an Amazon Pay button. And kind of curious because I'd never seen that on a merchant's website. Amazon really hasn't pushed it until recently. So I clicked Amazon Pay, and it just took me right to my Amazon checkout, where I have my Amazon credit card already set up. And it was just like checking out for a normal Amazon purchase. It took me about 2 clicks, and it was very easy. I was actually going to use PayPal, and I kind of like this alternative because it lets me keep all my purchases in one place. Because I'd say about 50% of what my wife and I order is already through Amazon. So it lets me kind of organize my purchases into one payment portal. And I actually think PayPal might have something to worry about here.
That's a good perspective there, and I want to ask you, because the initial thing that comes to mind here, where I think that they may have a little bit of a challenge. We know that to date, the U.S. consumer isn't necessarily all that digital wallet focused yet, right? That's still something that we're in the very nascent stages of this, and I think it's going to take a while for that behavior to really change. And I mean, I think you look at something like Apple Pay, for example, as clever as that is. Consumers still aren't embracing that wholeheartedly. So whether it's Apple Pay or Google Pay or Amazon Pay, that the digital wallet, there's a big opportunity there. So that explains why Amazon is pursuing this, of course. Now, I think that the one holdup, the one hang up here I have with Amazon in the situation, the process that you just described, it sounds like there's just a little bit more friction in there versus if I go somewhere, whatever website it may be, and I have the option to pay with Apple Pay. And when it says you want to pay with Apple Pay, and then you can just use your fingerprint, your thumbprint to verify the transaction, as opposed to having to go to another website and verify that purchase. So I guess what I'm getting at here is ultimately it feels like Apple and to a degree Google have a hardware advantage that Amazon doesn't have to date. Does that make sense?
Yes, but here's kind of my perspective on that. I don't necessarily think this will steal any market share from people who are already on Apple Pay or already on PayPal. If you're comfortable with something, both of those are very, like you just said, very easy portals. They both have hardware advantages over Amazon. But there's a lot of people who are not using digital wallets yet who are already comfortable with Amazon's checkout process. So I don't necessarily think they're going to steal market share or steal existing customers from any of the other ones, but I do think it gives them kind of an advantage, kind of recruiting new adopters to digital wallets.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think you're right. I think this is not, we talk about this all the time, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not as if one wins and everybody else loses. I mean, this is a massive opportunity out there. I mean, at the end of the day, money is going everywhere. I mean, that's what dictates everything, basically, is money getting from point A to point B. So pursuing even just a small piece of that pie makes a lot of sense, particularly in Amazon's case, because really you got to figure for them, this is a very easy bet to make. I mean, the business certainly isn't hinging on it. At the most, I mean, they get just a tiny scrape of that transaction. I mean, when Apple Pay is used, Apple gets a very, very tiny scrape of that transaction. It's not terribly meaningful. Now, it becomes meaningful if you have a billion people using it on a consistent basis. And obviously, we're not to that point yet. But even beyond the financial implications, I would imagine that a company like Amazon, as smart as they are about using data and doing things with that data, just gleaning the data from transactions like these would be seen as a reasonable payoff.
Right, and that seems to really be what they're after here. I've actually read Amazon is subsidizing the swipe fees for merchants, or not swipe fees, but whatever the swipe fee equivalent of digital wallet fees are. They're actually subsidizing the fees to get retailers to put the Amazon Pay button on their website at a lower cost to them. So it's pretty fair to say Amazon's really not making money on this, but they are. It's expanding their reach, and anything that expands Amazon's reach, data-wise, customer-wise, merchant-wise, is good for the long-term business.
Yep, makes sense to me. And I don't know that I would ever. I don't know that I don't think Amazon's going to ever really have a hardware advantage, at least on the smartphone side. Like, I mean, obviously they tried with the Fire phone. That was just, they were late to the game, tried to do something a little bit different, but really there was nothing terribly compelling to get someone to switch, particularly if you're already used to a certain operating system or whatnot. I'm also as skeptical when it comes to incorporating things like voice assistant technology into actually paying for things. But with all that said, I mean, things change very quickly, and technology is just evolving seemingly on a daily basis. So I'm gonna be interested to see where Amazon takes this. And it's Amazon Pay has been around for a while. It's just not much. They haven't done much with it. But perhaps we are entering this stage now where consumers are going to be a bit more open to adopting digital payments and digital wallets and whatnot. And if that's the case, I mean, clearly we can see there is a lot of market share there to pick up. And so for Amazon to try to be a part of that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, to be perfectly clear, PayPal, Amazon Pay, and Apple Pay all have tremendous growth runway. So I'm not saying that, PayPal's growth rate could go from 20% to 19% because of this. I'm not saying they're going to really suffer. So just to be clear, we still love PayPal on a long-term basis.
Gotcha. Okay, so you want to make sure we can respond to the inevitable email that we get. We're not saying short PayPal, long Amazon, right? You're probably just saying go long both, right? is reasonably to just diversify your portfolio and own shares in both companies.
Right. I'm saying both of these are going to be winners. I could just see like the tweet storm going off in my head when I was in the middle of saying that.
Well, we'll get out in front of it if that does happen.